Alright, we've got our next find, and this time it is a pretty spectacular looking mock viper. And I don't know how well it's going to come through here, but this mock viper has one of the most vibrant golden underbellies that I've ever seen. And it's in typical mock viper pose right now, trying to make us think that he's something more dangerous than he is. They are technically venomous, but I've found that their venom tends to be a bit more effective on geckos than it is on people. And they're a very variable species. I think we may have mentioned that before in terms of coloration. So this one's got a very copper orange color to the body, and it's a little bit less spotted and a little bit more striped. You can see there's a bit of lateral striping, or almost like a two-tone body color before you go down to the ventrals. And yeah, pretty fun snakes to find. They're relatively common in Hong Kong. They're not as easy to spot as some of the other snakes because their camouflage is quite good, but they are very common, and they can be found from lowlands to highlands and drier conditions and wetter conditions, though generally around forested areas, I think. So pretty fun find, pretty good day so far. If this is all we end up with, we'll still consider it a success, but we'll check back in if we find anything else. Alright guys, we've lucked out. It's been a little bit of a slower night, snake-wise, than I would have liked, but the rain's picked up a bit, so that's not entirely unusual in those conditions. But persistency does pay off with a new species for the vlog. This is a golden Kukri snake, genus Oligodon, species Cinereus. These are not a very common species in Hong Kong, or I shouldn't say that. They're a largely fossorial species, so they're not very commonly encountered. But this time of year, they're a little bit more common out and about. And they're a super interesting little snake. Now, there's two species in the Oligodon genus in Hong Kong. One is the Taiwan Kupri, which is a bit more browny, yellowy color. And then there's this one, the golden Kukri. And they're morphologically somewhat similar. They have these little shovel heads and kind of stockier bodies and pointed little tails. And like most Kukris in the genus, I think maybe all, they also have a very sharp rear tooth that the Taiwan Kupri snakes use for cutting into eggs. But the golden Kukri doesn't seem to use as much, and the tooth may not even be anywhere near as big, relatively speaking. And it's documented that these are actually largely insectivorous snakes. So they'll eat spiders and crickets and things like that. So actually pretty interesting species. And unlike their larger cousins, the Taiwan Kupri, these are also relatively reluctant to bite. And I don't recommend ever handling a Kukri because they can give you a pretty good slash, even to the extent you might have to go for stitches. But these guys are not quite as quick to do it. So I can give you a quick little view of the ventrals here. Unlike their cousins, the Taiwan Kupri, they have uniform colored ventrals. The Taiwan Kupris can have a pink colored belly. Let me fix the lighting here a little bit. Goes. But you can see there they have a pretty tiny little head that's pretty good for foraging, and yeah, they're just a really interesting little snake, and again, not one that commonly encountered, so pretty happy we stuck with it. And let's see, are you going under? Yeah, he wants to get under the leaf litter. Yeah, I'm going to try and get some photos of this guy because he's really cool. That's an interesting little defensive behavior, est right up. Yeah, we'll get some pictures and maybe share some here. And maybe I'll link some species info as well. But really great end to the night. Alright. There we go. Let's try and get a view of his head here. Okay. There we go. That's a little better. Alright. Well, we'll let this guy get on with his evening after the photos, and probably get back with you guys again tomorrow night. Okay, everyone, we have quite a special treat today. This is the extremely rare these days big-headed turtle, and in this case it's an even more rare situation where it's actually a juvenile. As you can see just by the rocks that he's on, how well camouflaged these guys are, and they're incredibly hard to come by. They're actually a protected species, so we're just going to get some quick video and then leave them be. But my buddy here actually found him. He's got quite an eye for these things, and this is just really, really special and unusual to come across. So I know we're usually focused on the snakes, but these guys are too good to pass up for sure. And we found him just in this little niche area. He was moving along, so he's actually not going to be able to get away too quick, so we're going to be able to get some great video. But yeah, what a cool little animal. And when these guys get bigger, their heads are so big compared to their body, they're completely incapable of tucking it back into their shells. And they live in cold mountain streams and are really, really adept at scaling rocks. They can go right up a vertical face with their claws, and my understanding is they also use their tails to help balance as they move up and down the rock faces. So I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to get another one of these on the video, so let's definitely take a minute on them. But you can see here as juveniles, they actually have really brightly colored faces, orange colored faces with that beautiful stripe. When they get older, their face completely darkens out, and for anyone used to species like the common snapping turtles in the US, they actually look like a miniature version of a common snapping turtle with an extra large head. So, pretty cool species. You can see some of the environment here. You can probably hear the fast-flowing river nearby as well. Yeah, very cool. So let's we'll take another minute or two to film him, and then watch him and make sure he gets somewhere secure, so that nobody else can find him. I don't imagine they would, based on where we're filming him now, but we'll just make sure he's nice and tucked away or back into the river. We're not going to handle them at all. They're a protected species, like I said, but we'll observe. Awesome find. Hello everyone. We have got another really cool find today. We'd previously been lucky enough to show you a juvenile big-headed turtle, and today we have got a mature big-headed turtle. And these guys are probably one of the coolest turtle species in the world. For those of you in North America, they're kind of reminiscent of common snapping turtles, but they have hugely oversized heads and really strong tails and claws. Let me readjust myself here. Sorry, just had to run around to the other side of them. But yeah, these guys are really cool. You can see how strong and fast they are. Oop, gotta move around a rock. Hold on. Alright. Yeah, he's moving quick, and he's getting close to some places where he's going to be able to hide in the rocks and get away. And we're not going to interfere with him, so might not be able to get a whole lot more video, but Very, very cool to be able to observe an adult of what has become a very rare species in Hong Kong. These guys are, I think, still poached quite a bit for the pet trade and traditional medicine trade. So, not very common to see, but a real treat every time. Very, very cool species. And you can see here there's a ton of difference between the adults and the juveniles. The juveniles are very brightly colored across the face. They have orange and yellow striping. As adults, we still see some remaining orange flecks around the face there and on the claws and a little bit even on the shell. But they really do darken up and start to look just a ton like the river rocks that they make their homes. And these will climb straight up boulders and rock faces. They use their long, strong tails as a support and sometimes a springboard. And the coolest feature about these guys, which I'd mentioned with the juvenile, but you can't really tell until you see a mature one, is that their heads are so big they can't tuck them inside their shells, like you'll see with a lot of other species, including the big snapping turtles from North America. So he's got himself in a little corner here. We'll get another minute or two with him. But yeah, you can see here, maybe I can get an angle on it, but you can see here how big the head is relative to the body. Let me get an angle where the light's not in the way. Yeah, right there. Just a very cool species. I wish they weren't so rare and we could see them more often, but I guess it makes it all the more special. There's that long tail. And for a rough size comparison, you can kind of see here, even full grown, these are quite small turtles. So nothing like the snapping turtles from North America. Very special little animal. All right. Well, non-snake, but a cool species either way. We'll go ahead and let this one get about its business. But great find. We'll check back in with the next species. Good morning, folks. We have a new species for the vlog, a more common snake here in Hong Kong, but one we haven't seen yet because we started late in the season last year. So this is a Taiwan Kupri, the direct cousin to the previously shown golden Kukri. Now these guys obviously look quite a bit different. All right, I've got some fire ants on my hand. So they look quite a bit different in terms of pattern and color, but if you look really close, their little heads are actually quite similar. Little shovel noses, big rostral scales right on the tip of the nose, and they're a subfossorial snake as well, just like the golden Kukris are. So they have a different coloration scheme, obviously. They're a little bit more yellowy brown or tannish brown. This one's quite beautifully spotted and flecked along the body. You can see there. But a lot of them are actually quite uniform brown or close to uniform brown with sometimes some striping on them, some faded striping. And occasionally you'll actually get ones with red stripes going down their back. And there's even reports, and I've even seen some photos of ones in Hong Kong that are actually all red like a golden Kukri, but it's a Taiwan Kupri, so that's quite rare. This is a much more common color scheme and morphology, but they're really interesting snakes, and they have really large rear fangs or rear teeth that they use for slicing open eggs, and they're quite adept at it. These guys, unlike the golden Kukris, actually do feed on eggs, and they're quite good at opening them up. So I definitely don't want to get bit. Oh, there we go. But since he's on the move, maybe I can lift him up and show you something else. On the ventrals, you can see they actually have this, he's got a lot of flecks on his belly, which is really interesting, but they also have this kind of salmon color down their bellies. This is unique to the Taiwan Kupris. The golden Kukris don't really have that. So, interesting find for an early morning walk. I'm going to go ahead and let this guy get on his way, but really cool that we could show you this. I'm off to see what else we can find later today. All right, folks, we're out for what's going to be our last night of herping this week, and we've come across our first snake here, which is a pretty little Anderson stream snake. And this one's kind of cool. It's got some pretty detailed black flecking on it. I think this is one of the more common snakes we've seen at the end of last year's season, start of this year's season, so I won't spend too much time, and I won't handle it or bother it. But yeah, it was just swimming along in this little stream. It's a decent size. There's the tail. Yeah, really cool when it's flecked all along its body with little black flecks. One of the more ornate ones I've seen so far, for sure. And this one has its head up, which is always very fun. You can see there. Tongue actively flicking. Not really sure what all this means. Maybe it's looking for a mate, maybe it's looking for food, but it's super active right now. It's the time of night where we'd expect that. Really cool to see the head up and the tongue flick. Just a very cool snake to find. Alright, we'll see if we can go find some others. Okay, folks, so right after we saw that night heron, I noticed this common blind snake moving along the wall here. So I thought I'd stop for a hot second and show you. We've seen these before on the vlog, so I won't spend too much time on it, but they're Hong Kong's smallest snake. This one's actually full grown. You can see roughly how big he is next to my finger there. And yeah, cool find. Snake number 2. Off to find, hopefully, number 3. Well, folks, we've got a pretty big hit here. Part of the way through the evening. This is a banded crate. A relatively uncommon snake to find here in Hong Kong, but definitely one of the most beautiful and also one of the most toxic. This is a elapid, so it's a direct cousin to the many-banded crate, which we've seen many times on this vlog now. But these guys are much more rare and much more spectacular. You can see the very high contrast yellow and black banding. And if you look close, you can see the body is very, very heavily keeled. It's actually almost triangular when you look at it from a cross-section. And they have these really, really robust heads, much more rounded with stronger jaws than the many-banded crates. This is definitely a first for the vlog, and these are definitely one of my favorite snakes here in Hong Kong. I only find a few a year, and I'm actually with a buddy of mine now that I found another one with last year, so pretty good luck. I think he's probably my banded crate good luck charm. So really, really cool snake. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with him, maybe get some photos, some better video, and then, yeah, see if we can't get you some good content on this guy. But you can see here, look at his head. What a robust snake. Very, very cool animal. And I'm just trying to keep him away from the wooded areas so I can get a little bit more time with him. Try and treadmill him a bit on the hook. Alright, there he is. Alright, so I'm going to try and get some photos of this guy. And yeah, maybe a little bit more B-roll video, but phenomenal snake, really great find. Super excited about this one. Hello again, everyone. We're out for another herping session, and we've come across a really cool find. This, for some of you who've been watching a little bit more, may recognize is a banded crate, but it's no ordinary banded crate. This is actually a juvenile. And I think we described the previous ones as relatively decent size. I believe they were around a meter long, give or take, and they can certainly grow much larger than that. And this one, on the other hand, is probably no more than 30 centimeters, if he's that long. And unlike the older ones, the yellow banding on these is actually quite drab. It's almost a brown color, as opposed to the either coppery, blacky yellows or the pure, bright, vibrant yellows that you can get on the adults. Now, the other interesting thing is that the stripes on the head are actually more in line with adult coloration. They're actually quite yellow when you look up close. I'll try and get us in here for a closer view, although I'm not sure how clear the coloration is going to come through, but you can see there. And this one's in typical banded crate defense mode. Actually, his head's a little bit more exposed than they normally are. A lot of times that head will actually be tucked under the body, and the tail will be visible only. So this is a pretty good angle for you to be able to see. Now, these are highly venomous snakes, even at this size. So I'm going to hold my hand up, but the hand is actually quite far away in this frame, so the relative comparison is not going to be that easy. But you can see here, rough comparison, this is quite a small snake with regards to the size they can attain. So very cool find. Very happy we could take a minute to show you before we let it get on its way. And we're going to keep moving. We'll let you know if we find anything else. Evening, folks. Off on a start to our walk here. And we've got kind of a cool opener. This is a Malaysian Porcupine. Big fat one. And he is going to be off into the woods there. Evening, everyone. Out again. Bit of a slow night so far, but I did manage to come across this whip scorpion, or Vinegaroon, whatever you want to call them. And this is actually the first live one I've seen in Hong Kong. So this is pretty cool. I've actually in this area found ones that are desiccated before, but this is the first real up close and personal with a living. Hold on, car coming. Sorry about that. But yeah, these guys are pretty cool. They're called Vinegaroons because they can actually smell a bit like vinegar. I think that's a defensive tactic, but they're a predatory arachnid for sure. Nice little pincers, somewhere across between a scorpion and a spider. So anyways, interesting start. It's a bit cold again, so we'll, have to get lucky to find a snake tonight, but we'll keep at it and we'll pop back. Hello, everyone. If you can't tell already, we've got a pretty special treat for you today. This is one of the prettiest subadult king cobras I've ever seen. And he's brought to us courteous of one of Hong Kong's most prolific snakers, a buddy of mine who actually found him right around where we're about to release him here. But he was kind enough to let me come by for the release to take some shots and take some video. So this is a Snake ID TV feature. We've not had a king cobra on the videos before, so I'll take a minute or two to talk about the species. This is the largest venomous snake in the world when fully grown. Some of the bigger ones can get upwards of 16 feet, and I think there might be some dubious records of bigger than that. Either way, it's a huge snake when it's fully grown. They eat almost exclusively other snakes, and that actually gives way to their genus name, Ophiophages, which is, I believe, Greek for snake eater. So these snakes are incredibly intelligent, incredibly fast, and as you can see here, pretty energetic as well. So unlike a lot of other snakes, like Chinese cobras that'll kind of go up in their hood and just go into robot mode, these guys actually kind of take assessments of their entire situation. So this one's looking at my buddy on my right, he's looking at me, and I can tell he's kind of maybe getting in the mood to dart off into the bushes, which we're going to let him do in a minute anyways, but not before I get some cool video. So I'm not sure how many of these we're going to get to have on the vlog because they're found very rarely here, but this is a real special treat for us today. See if I can get you an overhead. Look how smart he is. Sees me move just a little bit,
and he's locked on me. Really, really phenomenal snakes. I got hopefully some decent pictures, which maybe I can share in here if I did. If not, I'm not that happy with them. But pretty phenomenal. Big thanks to my buddy here for helping us out. Anybody who's interested as well can go and check out his Facebook page, Hong Kong Snakes. And if you've had any interest in seeing a king cobra, that's going to be one of your best bets. Look how quick and smart. So we're just going to film this guy for a minute or two more, get some behavioral documentation, and then we're going to go ahead and release him. King cobra, about as good as it gets. Okay, first snake of the evening, and we've got an oldie but a goodie, a white spotted slug snake. So I actually just pulled this guy out of a small but kind of deep gutter, and I'm assuming he didn't want to be in it because it's right next to a slope on a hill, and he probably would have been a meal for some other snake, so I am disrupting the natural flow of things a bit, but thought it would be helpful to get him out so we could film him a little bit and maybe help him on his way as well. So this is actually a little bit of a defensive move that he's making. They kind of knot themselves up into little balls as one mechanism for defense. They also play dead and do a few other things, but this is a pretty typical behavior. And this one's got really beautiful, contrasty, black and white flecking along the body, which is where they get their name white-spotted slug snake. The white's actually quite prominent. So we've talked about these guys before. They're slug and snail specialists. They've got adapted jaws and pretty common snakes. So it's been a long, dry evening, and this is the first snake we found, so I'm pretty happy. And we're going to keep walking along, see what else we can find, but at least we've got one for the evening. Yeah, maybe we can take a closer look at the ventrals as well. You can see they've got ventrals that kind of match the rest of their body as well. Nice pearly whites with black flecks. Great and cute little snakes. Alright, maybe put him a touch higher and let him on his way. Alright, good luck, little fella. Alright, folks, we have a very special treat tonight. This is the largest Chinese cobra I've ever seen. And it's also a golden brown in color. Actually, my buddy that I was with, or that I'm with here now, when we first saw it, we weren't sure if it was a king or not. But it's off hunting in these gutters looking for toads and anything else. At this size, I'm sure it could take down mammals and a whole lot of other stuff, but what an amazing snake. Really, really big. And really ornate hood markings too. I've seen ornate hood markings like this on a juvenile that was gray in color, and who knows, maybe that's a genetic line that kind of grows up this golden brown color. But he's got a little bit of yellow flecking and mottling on the tail as well. Giant, giant cobra head. He's kind of half flattening out his hood. I know we haven't seen these on the vlog before. We actually saw a king cobra before we saw a Chinese cobra, but what a cool specimen. Check out the size of this guy. Here's that yellow flecking down the tail, like I mentioned. You can see these cobras have pretty thick, robust scales. And this one's much more chilled out and deliberate than a lot of the other ones we see. Normally when you're this close, they hood right up. And I've got a handle on my video rig here that gives me a little bit of separation, and I've got a hook that's just about ready to shoot out in front too if we need to. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the cooler species that we've got in Hong Kong, and they're not all that unusual to bump into. Pretty intense find. And this one's a little bit roughed up as well. You can see there on the lip, it's missing a chunk of the upper left side of its lip. Who knows what that's from? And I noticed on some of its hood on the opposite side there that it's also missing a little bit of a chunk. So it looks like it's been in some battles over the years. And what a brute. What an amazing, amazing snake. I think we're gonna get a little bit more photos and B-roll, and then we're gonna go ahead and let it move on its way. But this is a cool find for tonight. Thought we were gonna be cleaning up with the bamboos, but got this right towards the end of the walk. We're actually just about to start heading out again, so this is a find right at the point we were turning around. All right, we will pop back in if we find anything else approaching this level of cool. Okay folks, got our second snake for the night, and this time it's a common wolf snake. Another regular feature on our vlogs, but this one's definitely one of the biggest ones I've seen. Very long and chunky wolf snake, very healthy. And he is making his way up these rocks. And I say he, I actually can't tell just by looking at it whether this is a male or female. Some part of me thinks this could be a early gravid female, but impossible to say for sure. But these snakes are excellent climbers, as we've seen before. You can see it's having no trouble making its way up this rock face. And yeah, for the people who are new, these are a semi-fossorial snake, very common in Hong Kong. They've got little wedge-shaped heads for foraging in rock cracks and underneath fallen debris. And definitely a more likely snake to encounter when you're out and about, especially in the evening. Alright, we seem to be on a roll. This is pretty close to the viper, so we can go ahead and see if we can find something else. Alright, not a snake, but we got a really cool insect here. These are lantern bugs, and they get their name from a misrepresentation during their, I guess, taxonomic recording where somebody thought that their noses lit up like a lantern, which is not true. And these are actually members of the leafhopper family, and normally when you find one on a tree, you find many, just like this. So they're giant leafhoppers, actually. Really, really cool looking critters. And I guess they're not that uncommon, but you gotta kind of know where to look for them. And it's been a while since I've seen one, so pretty happy to bump into these guys. All right, we'll pop back in with the next stuff. Okay, folks. We have a surprise treat tonight. Just behind my house, I came across this little juvenile Tokai Gecko. Look at his little black and white tail and his grumpy "I'm gonna bite you if I get a chance" face. These guys are awesome little reptiles, and they're not that common in Hong Kong, but there are stable breeding populations in a number of locations. One of those locations happens to be pretty close to where I live, so just stopping here, gonna get a few photos of him, and then I'm gonna go ahead and let him go. But really cool little find. I wasn't actually expecting to go out tonight. I had a few minutes to go out for a short walk, and the herp gods delivered. So cool little find. Off to the house now. This will close us out for tonight, but we'll be back on again tomorrow or the day after with some more. Alright folks, we're out for another night, and we came across a really bizarre scene here. This is
an Asiatic painted frog being attacked by a freshwater crab in this riverbed. I've never seen anything like this. So we're just going to watch this for a few minutes and see how it plays out. Oh, and the frog has gotten away. Very cool. Okay, folks, we have a fun little treat tonight. Just walking around and came across this tiny little dark-phased burrowing Rufus snake. These are a semi-fossorial species. We've seen one before earlier in the year that was more of a yellowish gold. This one's a little bit more to the dark side. They can actually be jet black as well. But this one is, I would say he's kind of a gray-black, and he's got a little bit of yellow under his chin there. So who knows what it'll look like when it grows up. I would say this one is about maybe subadult range. They're not a big snake in general, but you can kind of see here with my finger they're pretty tiny, and this guy's probably just getting out of juvenile into subadult. So interesting snakes. I usually find them early in the morning, but I can find them in the evening as well. So pretty fun spot. Pretty happy with this, and it's really just getting into the good part of the night, so hopefully we've got a little bit more in store. And one more thing to notice here is they actually have really iridescent scales. There's almost this sort of rainbow hue iridescence to them. May or may not come through on the video light. Certainly in bright sunlight you can see it. But maybe right along the bottoms there as I scan across you can kind of see some of that rainbow iridescence. Really unique characteristic of this species. There you go. You can see some around the where the body bends. There's some pretty distinct rainbow specular highlights coming off. Very cool. Alright, we're going to get some photos of this guy and then be on our way. Alright, folks, we've got our next snake of the evening, and this time it is a little burrowing Rufus snake. Now this is kind of fun because a video or two ago we found another burrowing Rufus, and it was a darker phased version, and I'd referenced these gold versions as another color variant that you can find. So kind of fun to be able to see one like this so short after that. You can see here they have very highly iridescent scales, and they really are a bright yellow, almost gold color. And aside from that, a relatively nondescript snake. Nothing too unique about their appearance. Quite small little fossorial snakes, and this one's out on this rather wet evening, maybe looking for some worms or something like that. And this is as found, just on the side of the path. So pretty cool little find. You can actually really see the iridescence on the head there, which is pretty cool. I'll see maybe if I can get my other light on him if it doesn't make it shine a bit more. Not really. Yeah, there you go though. Right on the head there, you can see it. Beautiful little snakes. And again, not too big. I'll show you general reference to size. That's my hand. This is this little guy. So yeah, fun find. I would say not uncommon, but not super common. So not a bad result. And we're just starting the walk back, so we're just a little more than halfway through. So I guess I'll stop and take a few photos of this guy, and then we will get back on the trail. Alright folks, just wanted to give you one last look at this burrowing Rufus snake, or Rufus burrowing snake, depending on how you want to say it. I think both common names work. But yeah, I got him off the path so that he doesn't get trod on.
There actually are a few hikers out here this evening, but put him up and off to the side here so that he can move along his way, and just thought it was a pretty cool pose to be able to check him out one last time. And again, maybe you can get a little bit of a hint of that iridescence that they have on their scales. In person, it's quite stunning. Maybe not so much on video, but I think you get a little bit of it. And you can see there his tongue flick. I mean, you'd almost think he was playing dead. He's so chilled out, actually, much more relaxed than the last one. But really cool snakes, especially this gold variant here. I think it's a really interesting looking snake, little fossorial, and this one's full grown for sure. So pretty fun find. We got to get back at it. We've been here a few minutes now, so things seem to be moving. Might as well get out looking. Okay, folks, we have got what I think is going to be a pretty solid closer for the night. This is a subadult many-banded crate, and it happens to be a particularly striking one with really, really tight bands, really, really high contrast black and white. Definitely one of the better looking many-bandeds I've seen in a while, and one of the first ones I've seen this year, actually. They haven't been quite as common as they were last year. So these are by far the most toxic snake in Hong Kong, as we've explained on previous vlogs. They're in a lapid, so they have a very potent neurotoxin, and it's delivered through these highly efficient small fixed front fangs. And they're definitely one of the more interesting species here. They're very much snake eaters. They'll take other prey as well, but snakes are their main diet, so I think we found this one on the prowl looking for another snaky meal, which bodes well for our chances at maybe finding at least one more on the walk out. But if not, this is a great closer. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get a few more photos of this guy, and then we're going to leave him be and get on our way. Maybe one more thing I can highlight, though, while I've got him, is if you take a look at the scales along the vertebrae here, you can see they're actually quite a bit larger than the scales on the sides. So these are called vertebral scales, the scales that run right down the middle of the vertebra. And this is a great way of telling a crate from a mimic like a wolf snake. So we've talked about that on previous vlogs, but this is some really clear footage where you can really see those large scales on the spine there. All right, solid last find, potential last find. We'll check back in if we find anything else. All right, folks, we've got snake number 2. This one we've had on the vlog before, but this one's sitting really nice in here. This is a greater green snake. It's a harmless snake, a diurnal snake, and he looks like he's finding a place where he can hide out for the night. There's only 2 green snakes in Hong Kong, this and the bamboo pit viper. The pit viper we've seen quite a lot of. This one we've only seen a few, but they're interesting snakes. They're actually worm eaters. I'm sure they might eat some other stuff, but worms seem to be their main staple. And people see them out on the trails a lot during the day. They can be a little bit persecuted too, because people mistake them for the bamboo pit vipers. But they're completely harmless and beautiful little snakes. So I'm not going to mess with this guy. He's set up real nice here, and we'll probably just grab a few pictures and leave him be. We haven't found any more snakes yet, but found this funny little guy, who I doubt this is biting off more than he can chew, but he's definitely got a big meal going in tonight. So this is a common Asian toad and an earthworm. Very cool little herp predation video. Now normally they'd be swallowing this down real quick, so I think I'm bugging him a little bit. So we'll go ahead and leave him be. But cool spot. My buddy actually spotted it as we were walking out. Oh, there he goes. Maybe we will watch for a second. Alright, well, we don't want to bug him too much. We'll let him go now, I think. Alright, folks, we're still just at the start here, and yeah, I don't want to waste too much time, but came across this really beautiful unicorn beetle. It's their common name anyways. I unfortunately don't remember the scientific name, but this is a pretty big specimen. You can see here, that is a decent sized little beetle, and he is just crawling his way up this tree here and is pretty chilled out, so I don't want to mess with him too much. It looks like he might drop off if I get too close, but pretty cool little find just at the start. A nice decent sized insect. So yeah, fun stuff right at the beginning. We'll keep it going. Pop back on if we find anything else interesting. So just walking back down the path and came across this guy, and I'm pretty sure it's the same one we just saw that came back out onto the path as I was walking by. So this one's out and about now. He got a little bit freaked out when I walked a little bit close, so he's in defensive mode now, but pretty cool snake. This one's interesting. It's a smaller many-banded crate, but it's got the distinctive yellow coloration up by the first third where the white should be. That's pretty characteristic of mature specimens. Less so of smaller ones like this, but looks like he's getting a bit more comfortable, so I think we'll probably just move on and let him go about the business of hunting, which is what he's up to. But pretty cool to see it on the return like this. Alright folks, we've got a bit of an odd one here for you, but we just found this shrew stuck in a bit of a water trap. And so we got him out safely using this box, and I'm going to go ahead and let him go into the woods here. But I say we got him out safely partly because we wanted to protect him, but also because these shrews, which most people probably won't know about, are actually venomous. And I'm not sure if it's certain species of shrews or not. I'm pretty sure this one is. And apparently the venom is pretty agonizing, so I don't know that much about them, so I won't talk out of turn, but I thought it was a pretty interesting find and nice little change of pace from the snaking. So we'll go ahead and walk over here and let this guy go, and maybe we'll be able to get some footage of him running away. So there is the open lid. The shrew. Oh, and oh, you can hear him squeaking. Well, and he's off that quick. So anyways, cool find. We're gonna get back at it. Alright folks, we have a new species for the vlog, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, and new species and a lifer for me. And I'm embarrassed because this is actually not supposed to be a very difficult species to find, but this is a Plumbus water snake. And these guys are a pretty much fully aquatic species of snake. The only other snake like them here in Hong Kong is the Chinese water snake. And yeah, they're kind of like mini anacondas. I don't really know a better way to describe them. I mean, it's quite a small snake, actually, but I'm going to try and get an angle on it here so you can see what I'm talking about. If you look close, the eyes are actually positioned right on top of the head there, just like an anaconda would be. And they're actually pretty stout little bodies. They look a little bit like the Anderson stream snakes we've had on the vlog so many times, but they have much more robust heads, and they're, I think, much more aggressive fish eaters than what you would see in the Andersons, who tend to go for things more like worms. But this is a really, really cool species. They actually have a pretty aggressive defensive display where they actually jump and hop and flip around and bite aggressively. So they're pretty cool and spectacular little animals to encounter. But man, yeah, I've been looking for these forever. very, very cool new species for the vlog. And I'm going to try and get some good photos of them and see what else we can do maybe for video. But super happy right now. I think we're just getting ready to head home now too, so pretty awesome closing find for the evening on a relatively slow night. Plumbus water snake. Awesome find. Alright folks, we've got the stuff of nightmares. This is a giant centipede feeding on a Chinese cockroach. Pretty intense stuff. My goodness. This centipede doesn't like the video attention. He's trying to figure out where to go. Off he goes. Alright, stuff of nightmares. Alright folks, we're out for another night, and we have another oldie but a goodie. This is a Redneck Keelback. We've had these on the vlog before, and this is a mature specimen, and I think the last one we had was a pretty vibrantly colored juvenile. So I would say this is a good representation of what they can look like when they get older. You can see their colors have faded out quite a bit. There's not as much checkered marking on the bodies. You can have adults that retain that, but the heads all go this olive green color as opposed to the gray that they have when they're juveniles. And the yellow collar pretty much fades away entirely. So this is a pretty good example of a mature one. And as you may remember, for the loyal viewers, that this is Hong Kong's only venomous and poisonous snake. So the poison is actually secreted through the glands on the back of the neck that run right down that section, but they're able to secrete poison through the glands on their necks. Again, we've talked about this quite a bit, so those who've been watching for a while will know. But they're actually a really interesting species of snake here, and I'm happy to say they're actually quite common as well. So pretty cool find to start the night, but we're going to keep at it and see if we can find some more cool stuff. Alright folks, we've got our next snake just on this wall here. This is a juvenile redneck keelback. We've seen these on the vlog before. As mentioned, they are a venomous and poisonous snake. They can excrete poison through a groove on the top of their neck, and they are rear fang venomous. Technically the venom's quite potent, but they're not really very aggressive, and they really have to get a good bite on you to envenomate. So generally speaking, not a very concerning snake, but as juveniles they have this great bright coloration. Nice bright red, yellow collaring, and the gray head. They'll drab out a little bit as they get older, but when they're young they're pretty cool. Well, we're gonna keep going. We're headed out now, so not sure how much more we'll find, but keep you posted if anything else comes up. Okay everyone, we don't have a snake here, but we've got some caterpillars that are trying to look like snakes. And I can show you this one in the back here especially. If you look close, kind of like this, it looks a bit like a snakehead with snake eyes. Now, I don't know much about the species or genus or anything like that. I'm sure there's plenty of other people watching that are a little bit better at that than me, but see these from time to time as we're walking out and about, and it's a pretty cool mimic, actually. You can see here there's a number of false eye spots on the head. This caterpillar has its head out a little bit more, not as defensive, whereas the other one, the eyes are pretty prominent. So we'll take a few pictures of these guys, and then we'll get back to walking, see if we can't find some more genuine snakes. Okay everyone, we've got our first snake of the evening on this newest herp walk. This is a new species for the vlog. We found them before but never actually gotten them on camera. And this is a Diamondback water snake. This is Cynonatrix equifasciata. So they're actually a really cool natricine snake, a water snake. A little bit less common than the mountain water snake and some of the others we've seen on the videos before, but you can see here they've got some pretty spectacular markings, and they have these really cool reddish color heads. And yeah, just a really interesting species. They're kind of typical for water snakes. You know, these got very heavily keeled scales, very happy to musk and give you a little nip, maybe a little bit less than some of the other water snakes here. And you might be able to notice as the tongue is flicking, they actually have a two-tone tongue. The tips are actually white on these species. I've got some good photos of that, which maybe I'll insert here. But I've got to hang on to this one because they're actually very adept swimmers and they love to dive down. So when you come across them, it's kind of actually tough to get to them. They usually put themselves in branches above deep pools or rocks close to deep pools, and they'll jump right in and swim right to the bottom if you try and come for them. You can see here the ventral scales, the bands actually go around to the bottom there. They wrap all the way around, which is kind of cool. They break up a little bit in the middle, but pretty much wrap all around. And yeah, really great species. Very happy to be able to bring it to the vlog. So we're going to let this one get on its way, and we'll check back in if we find something else. Alright folks, we've got our next snake of the night, and this is a Footsing's wolf snake. And we've talked about this before on the vlog. For those that are new, we have a highly toxic species of snake in Hong Kong called the many-banded krait. That's also this kind of black and white banding, but there's a couple of key differences, and the number one of which, hold on, the number one of which is the vertebral scales. So on the Footsing's wolf snakes, the vertebral scales are actually all So yeah, as I was saying, the vertebral scales on the Footsings are all uniform with the rest of the scales on the body. You can see there, the scales that run right along the spine, they're the same size as the scales right next to them. And on the many-banded krait, those scales are enlarged. So you can kind of tell the difference between the species most accurately by using that determinant. Once you get familiar, there's also some morphological differences with respect to the banding. They're more jagged saddles like you see here with the Footsings, whereas the many-bandeds are a bit more uniform. But that's not a great way to try and determine the difference because there's a lot of variability between the species and within species with respect to the markings. So this was found alongside a riverbed, which is a pretty common place to encounter these guys. And so far, this one's been relatively well behaved. They're usually very bitey. This one just trying to get away and get a meal, which I'm going to let him do in just a second here. But wanted to make sure that we stopped and showed you this. And we're going to head back now. So we've got, we're halfway done. We're going to walk out the same way we came in, and hopefully we'll find a few more species. But been a pretty cool night so far. Some things we didn't get on camera were pretty awesome, like that leopard cat. And then happy that we were able to get some things like this Footsings for you. So we're going to let him go and check back in if we find something on the way out. Alright everyone, it's been a pretty good year for rare turtle species, and we've been out on a stream hike looking for snakes and came across this Beale's terrapin, or Beale's four-eyed turtle, walking along this rock bed. And this is super lucky because I'm going to be able to film it while it makes its way over these rocks, which normally these are in the streams and they're super rare, so we don't like to physically interact with them. It went in its shell as soon as I got close, and now it's starting to come out. But you'll be able to see, hopefully, when the head stretches out, why they call them four-eyed turtles. These are actually mountain stream dwellers, similar to the big-headed turtles we've had on previously. Oh, there you go. See those spots right on top of the eyes? Those are the 4 eye marks, and there's actually a couple sets of them. Oh my goodness, it's coming right by my feet. There's actually a couple of sets of them. There's the 2 big yellow ones, and then there's smaller, fainter ones just above the yellow ones, which would be a bit tricky to see, but maybe I can get some photos to put in here as well. And this is a very, very rare species of turtle here in Hong Kong. It's a local species. They're really spectacular. I'm surprised it's moving more towards the land than towards the water, which is a bit surprising to me. It had a straight shot at the water just now. I don't know much about the species, but I mean, they look like a river turtle a little bit, but also like they could be pretty decent on land. And this one seems to be going for the land, so quite interesting. But yeah, they're not a very big species. I think this is full grown, and I'm pretty sure this is a female based on the coloration, but you can see here, based on my hand size, it's actually not a very big turtle. And really actually quite gregarious. Look at those eye spots. Isn't that tremendous? Such a cool thing. You can see here, this is a good shot. Now you can actually see the eyes above and the eyes below. And I'm not sure there's any great theories as to why those exist. If anybody knows, you can go ahead and leave something in the comments. But such an interesting species. The shell looks really a lot like a combination between a waterlogged leaf and a river rock, so they must be quite good at concealing themselves, and they're not very big, so I imagine they could squeeze in between the rocks, though they do have a little bit more of a round shell than the big-headed turtles, which are actually quite flat and look like they would actually be even better at getting in between the rocks. So this is super lucky to be able to get it out like this. Look at that. What a great, great looking animal. So interesting. I actually think I don't want it to go too far off the river because I'm here if it's actually trying to be in the river. So I think we'll just film for another minute or two and then let it get back on its way. And like I said, they're an endangered species and they're quite hard to find, and I imagine they're also poached quite heavily here. So yeah, this is super exciting. Look at that sort of pink peach color throat. What an amazing turtle. Maybe we'll get another shot at those eyes. That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, well, it's getting a little bit shy, so maybe we'll go ahead and leave it on its own. Give it some space and see if it doesn't move back into the river. And I'll try and maybe get some B-roll of that if it gives me enough time to shoot it before it disappears in the water. But really fantastic find. Super fun year for turtles for sure. And like I said, maybe if it's up here I can get some good pictures of it too, and when it runs down towards the water. But really cool. Beale's four-eyed turtle. Hong Kong has big worms. Okay folks, we're making our way to a new spot, but on the way out we've spotted one of these rhesus macaques. And they're pretty common around here. Not too special, but I don't think we've had him on the vlog before, so here you go, and off he goes. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Alright everyone, we've finally managed to get a Chinese water snake in a position where we can take a better look at it. And I think this is a pretty good representation of the species. You can see here they've got a pretty unique color to their lower side scales, just above the ventrals there. It's a peachish color, almost like a light pink to a peach color. They have olive bodies, olive-colored bodies with these distinct black markings. And then if you can look at the head, as with a lot of the aquatic species in Hong Kong, they have a very distinct, robust head made for grabbing and holding on to fish. Well, hold on here, see if we can get a better vantage point. Okay, we've got him back where we can see him, and this is a pretty unique position with the head up, but I'm going to go pretty quick because this one's ready to get back into the water. But you can see here, very robust heads. Really, really cool looking snake. They look like mini anacondas, at least in my eyes. And you can see there's actually a bit of an iridescence to the scales as well as it moves through the lights here. Very interesting species. Only one of 2 snakes in this genus left in Hong Kong. And yeah, very plentiful where they're found, but they're very specific in terms of their habitat. They like stagnant water, muddy water, where they can sit still and hunt fish all night. So we're going to let this one get on its way, but a very cool find. And I think that's going to do it for the night. All right, everyone. We have got a really cool find tonight. This is a snake that's actually quite difficult to find in Hong Kong. And for those of you who watch the vlogs more regularly, you might be a little bit concerned to see me holding this because it's probably the closest mimic to the many-banded crate that we have in Hong Kong. But this is actually our 3rd species of wolf snake here, the banded wolf snake, Lycodon subcinctus. And these, unlike the other 2 species that we've seen on the vlog, as I mentioned, are quite difficult to find. But you can see here the bands and coloration look a lot more like a many-banded crate. But if you look close, you'll see that the bands are actually quite widely spread, and they actually disappear on the second half of the snake. You can also see here the ventrals are pure white. The bands don't wrap around at all, which is another telltale sign. And of course, the most telling is the vertebral scales, so the scales that run down the ridge of the spine. They're uniform in size to the scales on the rest of the body. So that's really the main way to tell the difference between the wolf snakes and the crates. Like I just said, morphologically there are some other ways to determine with this one, but none of them are safe enough to go by religiously. Certainly nowhere near as safe as using the scales on the spine. And these guys are also a little bit less likely to bite, like the footsings and the common wolf snakes. And their musk is also quite a bit less pungent than some of the others. Especially the footsings has a very pungent musk. And these banded wolves actually aren't very strong at all. So really, really cool snakes. Like I said, very difficult to find. This is actually the 4th that I found. I found 2 juveniles and 1 quite large adult that was probably 2 or 3 times the size of this one, with even more faded bands. But this is, I would call this a subadult, but it's already exhibiting adult coloration, where you can see on the juveniles the bands are actually very, very stark black and white, and they actually go all the way down to the tail. And here you can see on this one, the tail is completely absent of any banding at all. There you can see there. All the bands fade out on the tail by the time they get to subadult size. So really fantastic find. Unfortunately, I've had to hold him to show you because he's right next to a wall with a lot of crevices, and he'd be able to get away quite quickly, which we're going to let him do in short order anyhow. But after we stopped, he was actually up on the wall, so we were actually able to get very close and look in great detail at the body and the spine and the scales before we actually determined it was okay to handle. And even then, I would say this is still a relatively risky behavior and not something I'd recommend to people. And I know it's always a bit hollow to say, do as I say, not as I do. But in this case, you know, a mistake in the wrong direction of a many-banded crate, that is, would not be a good one to make. So don't recommend it, but I am happy to have been able to spend the time properly identifying this so I could hold it and give you guys a good look. There's a beautiful look at the head. Look at that. What a great snake. So yeah, this is the banded wolf snake, the rarest of the 3 wolf snakes that occur in Hong Kong, at least rarest locally here, and a new species for the vlog. We'll go ahead and take a few shots of this guy and then let him get on his way. Hello again, everyone. We're out for another night and off to an okay start here with this very good sized mountain water snake. We've seen a fair few of these in the vlogs recently, so I won't spend too much time talking about it, but this is an aquatic snake here in Hong Kong, and not too uncommon around lower level mountain streams, and pretty cool. They're very much like a lot of the water snakes you'd experience anywhere. They're pretty quick and like to dive in the water and do a lot of death rolling and biting, but this one's, as they go, I suppose, relatively calm. And when they're mature like this, their markings are relatively faded, but as juveniles, all the coloration in between the little diamond-shaped bands you see there is pretty bright red. So they're actually relatively attractive snakes as juveniles, and as adults they're quite nice too. Just they drab out and get a lot more camouflaged. You can see the ventrals, they've got a little bit of checkering on the belly. This one's a bit brown with a little bit of yellow coloration on the ventrals towards the neck there. But we're going to go ahead and let this one go right where we found it here. Just wanted to stop and make sure I had a chance to show you guys what we found. Alright, we'll check back in if we find something else. Alright, we have our next snake right next to that redneck keelback. Was this pretty little subadult mountain water snake, Cyanonatrix pericarnata. And he's moving around a bit, so he's not going to let me show you his head too well, but there you go. And they're actually, whoa, common, but you know, I guess when they get older they can be a bit drab, but they're kind of nice looking when they're small like this. And when they're even smaller, they've got nice red banding on their side and everything, so pretty cool snakes actually. Anywho, we'll let this one go and check back in when we find something else. Okay everybody, we're out for another night, and we've got a really nice find here. This is actually a large spotted cat snake. We found these on the vlog before, but not so many of them, so really cool to be able to show you this one. And he is in very traditional many spotted cat snake strike pose. It actually doesn't take them too much to send out a bite, so this is a very cool find. These are actually from the genus Boiga, which are a class of snakes that are tree snakes for the most part. They're highly arboreal, but to be honest, I find almost every single one of these on the ground. And this one actually has a meal in it. I don't know if we're going to be able to see, but yeah, the bolus is just over here. And you can kind of see from my hand size how big the snake is. This one's pretty tiny. They do get bigger than this, but I would consider this maybe a subadult. And really cool species to find. We actually also found a checkered keelback, and I'm going to try and get some footage of that as well. But aside from that, a few other snakes that moved off the path too quick, some bamboos and things like that. But it's been a little bit slow, so we're going to keep going and see if we can find some more. But super happy that we came across a boiga. Very cool species. Alright, we'll check back in with the next one. Alright folks, we're on the start of another walk. No snakes yet, but we've got a golden orb weaver with a very large meal. Pretty intense stuff. A gruesome start to our walk. Check back in if we find something a little bit more slithery. Alright folks, we are out again.
And we've got our first snake of the evening. And this time it's the tried and true bamboo pit viper. You can see here, this one's set up really nice in ambush. And it looks like we've got a very decent sized male this time. And pretty cool looking. This one has darker colored eyes. Sometimes you get that by a different locality. And I can't overemphasize how very characteristic this position and setup is of this species. And one of the things that's worth note here is this is facing toward the path that people walk on. It's a pretty narrow path as well. So you can see how it is that these snakes are responsible for almost all of the venomous snake bites here in Hong Kong. If you were walking down this path without proper footwear or leg wear, without a flashlight and not paying attention, and you were walking too close to the rail, this snake could very innocently take a bite out at your toe, walking by as it thinks it's a gecko or some other prey animal walking underneath its strike range. So very cool first spot of the night. We've had some of our first rains for a while as well, so I'm optimistic that we're going to have a good session here. But bamboo to start, not too shabby. We'll check back in with the next one. Okay folks, we got our next snake down by a little stream here, and this is the biggest striped stream snake I've ever found. Now they're not a big snake in general. Oh, there he goes. But they really are not this big when they're full grown for the most part, or it's also possible, I mean I've seen lots of these, but it's also possible that I've mostly caught sub-adults and never really seen one this big. But this one's quite large as striped stream snakes go. You might be able to see from, hold on one sec, this one's very lively. You might be able to see from this lighting, I'm not sure, but the body has these longitudinal stripes, usually two mostly solid down either side of the vertebra, the dorsum, and then some broken up ones. But this one's pretty solid striping actually, all the way from the neck down the body, a few breaks here and there. And obviously as an adult those marks are going to be faded. And this one also has a cream colored belly, unlike the Andersons, which have a yellow belly. This one actually looks slightly deflated as well, so it wouldn't shock me if it's a female that had recently given birth. I can't say for sure, obviously. I don't know the species well enough to be able to distinguish male from female, but pretty cool snakes. You can see there the tiny little wedge-shaped head, indicative of some of the behaviors of, you know, looking under rocks and streams for prey. And you can probably hear the waterfall behind me. I've mentioned before, these guys like really fast-flowing, clear mountain streams, which is where we are now. Let me see if I can cover it up real quick and give you one last look, because we're just going to let this one go right off into the water right here. But yeah, striped stream snake. Really great. We saw Cyanonatrix as well, a mountain water snake, but that one didn't want to hang out for us, so we didn't get it on film. But pretty happy to get this one, and we're going to let it go and then go ahead and get back to walking, see if we can find something else. Alright folks, we got our next snake of the night. My buddy just found this bicolor stream snake. Not too surprising a find as we're walking right around a stream, but these are one of the prettier of the stream snakes we have here. You can see the clearly delineated side pattern there. It's where they get their common name from, bicolor stream snake. You can see it's clearly delineated between that peach color on the bottom and the olive green on the top, with that really high contrast black line down the middle there. Pretty small snakes. This one's full grown. I've seen them a touch bigger than this, but this is not much bigger than they'll get in maturity. And yeah, they love these little streams, hunting around for crustaceans and fish and worms. And pretty fun little find. So we're still early in the evening.
We'll see if we can't come up with something else, but pretty happy to have come across this as our second find. Alright folks, we're out on another walk and we have come across one of the coolest things you can find in Hong Kong, a very rare bottleneck softshell turtle. And this is a very large adult and it looks like it's a male. I'll try and put my hand out for reference. You can kind of see here, this is a very big mature turtle. And like I said, these are pretty hard to come by, and really happy to have the chance to be able to film one tonight. So they're kind of interesting. I'm from the US and I'm used to soft shells, especially big ones like this, living in slower flowing bodies of water, not really these clear shallow mountain streams. So it's kind of cool to see something this big in relatively shallow streams. I mean, there's lots of deep pools where these could hide and fish and things like that, but yeah, just an interesting thing based on what I'm used to from back in the US. So this is right off on the side of a pretty big stretch of river, so I imagine when this thing decides to run off, that's going to be it. But really cool. We can see here the shell, there's some interesting markings and coloration. Nothing really spectacular, but it really looks like a river rock up close. There's just random patterning here, and you can see on the back there's a lot of these skin nodules here and up by the neck as well. I'm actually going to have to do a little bit more research on the species myself after this, but we'll definitely get this one up on the website, and really happy to have it in the vlog for you. So I think we're just going to spend a few more minutes and try and get some still photos before this thing heads off while it's in the shallows. But happy to have it on the vlog here for you. And yeah, really cool find. Very exciting. Alright folks, well, while we've been watching the bottleneck, it just started digging and burying itself right into the riverbed underneath some pretty substantial rocks. So we've got some trees here. Under some pretty substantial rocks, you can see here, I mean, these aren't small rocks, and it's having no problem digging right into and hiding in these really heavy river rocks. A really powerful animal, actually. Very cool behavior to observe. And I guess you can see here how they can be so hard to find and how they can survive so well in these river habitats. I mean, this thing is right in front of my face, and I could easily walk by this if I didn't know it was here. And it's, you know, in a couple of inches of water. So very cool behavior to observe. I know with the glare of the light here, it's a bit tricky to see. Let me try and get around at another angle. There we go. But yeah, you can see here, I mean, that's the turtle right there, and it's a large turtle, and you can barely see it. It's very happy to have dug itself into the riverbed here and hide like this. So very cool observation. Like I said, we're gonna, I mean, it's hanging out, so we'll try and get some more good photos of this behavior and anything else we can grab. And if there's anything else cool that pops up for video, we will include it here. Alright, so we're done with our photos, and the turtle's now kind of moved off into some more open water here. So I think right now it's just kind of sitting here like looking like the mossy rocks it's right next to. But it might swim off in a minute. It's kind of hard to grab focus here too, so I think we'll close off the session with this turtle here. But yeah, probably one of the coolest finds we've had all year. Really awesome.
Alright everyone, we're actually trying to finish up our walk here, and we came across this amazing juvenile bottleneck softshell turtle. And what a cool animal. Now he might take off real quick, so I'm just going to readjust so I can be in a better position. So give me 1 second, I'll pop back on. Alright, I think he's going to stay put for us, but if he shoots off, that'll be it, because we're not going to interfere with him. And he was just sitting in the shallows here as we came up. But you can see here there's a significant morphological difference between the juvenile and the adult, and I'm sure between individuals as well, but the shell here has a very distinct heavy patterning. There's a really dark undercolor, almost like a black shell, with these really clear brown spots all over the back. And actually this looked a lot like a leaf to me when I first walked up to it. Quite different from the adult that looked like a big stone. And the other thing I noticed just a minute ago when its head was out is the head has got some really interesting coloration too, a little bit of striping down the sides, you can see there. And as is typical with a lot of different reptiles, this juvenile, generally speaking, a bit more colorful than the mature adult, but still just a fantastic animal. And I just can't believe that we've got an example of a juvenile and an adult all on the same walk here. So this is a really great trip. I think we're not going to bother this one too much longer. It's probably looking for a meal tonight, so I don't want to stress it out more than we have to, but really fantastic find. Super excited to be able to bring you two of one of the more rare species of turtle here on what's turned out to be a pretty epic walk. We also found a few Diamondback water snakes, but they slithered away before I could get a chance to film, so if we see anything else worth note, I'll definitely pop back on. Otherwise, this will make a pretty amazing close to the evening.
Alright, we've got our next herp for the night, and this is really pretty cool. This is a Chinese waterside skink. We found a few of these in recent vlogs, and if you look close, this one is actually a pretty visibly gravid female. Very chunky, really cool body patterns on this one. You can see really kind of coppery gold color, a bit orangish. The head's got some cool markings on it, and just a real beauty and a real pleasant find. So we've actually come across a few other snakes too, a wolf snake, a stream snake, a many-banded crepe, but they were all in process of moving into some hiding spots, so we didn't actually spend much time on them. But this is a really cool find. This is the first gravid waterside skink I've ever found, and so I'm actually just going to let her go right after we're done filming here, because you know I don't want to disturb a pregnant female too much. But really great find. We're going to keep going. The snakes are definitely out. We just need to find one that's not slithering into a hole, and we'll get it on video for you.
Hello again, folks. We have our next snake of the day, and this is a really cool find. This is a juvenile Chinese slug snake, Pareas chinensis, and this is one of the lesser found snakes here in Hong Kong due to their highly localized population and somewhat cryptic nature. But this one is especially interesting to find because it's so tiny. See if I can prop my hand up and give you guys a view. Alright, there is our snake, and here is my hand just above him. So this is a teeny tiny little Chinese slug snake, and a really cool specimen. As juveniles here, you can see the markings are pretty pronounced. Very clear black stripes all down the body on a orangish reddish kind of base, and really gorgeous red lacquer colored eyes. So very cool species here. These, similar to the white-spotted slug snakes, which you've seen quite a lot of, are snail specialists, so they only eat snails and slugs, and their jaws are specifically adapted for the task as well. So we're going to film him for a few minutes and maybe get some still photos, and then check back in with you. Alright, just one last quick shot before closing out. And this is a close-up of the head with a macro lens on manual, so not sure how good this is going to be, but thought it might be cool if you guys could see a little bit more detail on this tiny, tiny little snake. So anyways, this will close us out. Gonna get back on the trail, see if we can come up with anything else. Evening again, folks. Out on another walk, and lo and behold, another gorgeous little juvenile Chinese slug snake. This one is, I would say, even more vividly colored than the last one. The last one was a little bit darker in color. This one's a really bright, vibrant creamsicle orange with, I would say, slightly more spotty black banding running the length of the body. So still very standard Chinese slug snake in terms of color and pattern, but a really vibrant one. And it's also a teeny tiny juvenile. I'll give you a look in a minute just how small, but really, really cool to find this. This is a relatively cool evening, but it appears to be baby season for these guys, so at least a few have hatched. This is in a different location than the last one, so I assume this is just the time of year. But really cool find. Gonna keep walking around for a little bit, but not gonna stay too much later, so this may be our only find for the night, which is not unusual this time of year. But yeah, let's take a closer look maybe on a side profile here, and then spend a few more minutes with this guy, and we'll get back to it. Alright, well here's a close-up of the face, and as you can see, it's very, very brightly colored, and really great view here of that really unique red lacquer colored eye. And you can see there they have a pretty interesting pupil. It's kind of an oblong oval, a little bit stretched out, almost like a cylinder rounded at both ends. Very, very unique to the Chinese slug snake here in Hong Kong, and a really cool little feature that usually you don't get to notice on shots and videos unless they're up close macro style like this. So pretty cool little snake for sure. And this one looked like it was out on the hunt. I mean, I'd walked past the same spot a few times tonight and hadn't seen it, so it had just come out a little bit late in the walk here, and I imagine it's looking to get a meal in. So we're gonna go ahead and leave it and let it get about its business. Hopefully it'll find a snail to eat tonight, and we're going to keep walking. So a few other cool species can be found here. I'm not sure we're going to have any luck. Everything here is a little bit less common to encounter, but we'll keep at it and check back in if we find something. Otherwise, we'll join again on the next walk. Evening, everyone. Out for an impromptu snake photo session here with this very special juvenile mountain pit viper. These are a cold weather species that have highly localized populations here in Hong Kong, and it's an uncommon encounter to find even an adult specimen, let alone one as small as this. So I was lucky enough to be invited out by a friend for the photo session here, and I ran right over as soon as they said there was one sitting by waiting to get shot. And as you can see here, they're pretty tremendous looking animals. Very special morphological features. You can kind of see the white stripe on the tail there. That's a caudal lure, so supposedly they use that to act like a lure, like a worm or something, to entice prey to come in, and then they can strike them and eat them. These are also really unique in terms of the viper species for a couple of reasons. Number one is their egg layers, which is a little bit less common in the viper world, though not unheard of. And they're also constrictors. So unlike most vipers that'll either bite and release and wait for their prey to die and then go eat it, or bite and hold on and swallow it down, these are actually known to bite, grab, hold on, and then constrict around, especially when they're eating mammals. So very, very unique adaptations in this species. Cold weather, egg laying, constrictor tendencies, really great camouflage too, as you can see, and some pretty spectacular markings on the face. But really, really great to be able to photograph this one and video this one. We'll see if we can stick some stills in here as well so you can see from different angles what they look like. But yeah, great result tonight. This will close us out. We'll check in again when we go for the next walk.